Should be good.
Good afternoon. It is 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday, March 5th, 2023. We will call the City Council meeting of the City of New Ulm to order. At this time, our first item is the consent agenda. Councilors, what are your wishes?
So move.
Second.
Thank you. We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That does carry. Under licenses and permits, Section 2, Item 2.1, Black Frost Distilling LLC, a liquor license extension.
Call up for the resolution, authorize the request to extend the Black Frost Distilling LLC liquor license to the adjacent parking lot at 201 First North Street for an event being held on Saturday, May 4th, 2024, from 2 p.m. until 10 p.m., subject to compliance with all city and state requirements.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Director Jorgensen, please call the roll.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Becker?
Yes, that motion does carry. Item 3.1, ordinance number 2024-TBD, first consideration on zoning. Mr. Nisley, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Council President, Councilors. John Nisley, planner with the City of New Ulm. If you wouldn't mind, I just would like to give a little background on why we're taking a look at amending this part of the zoning ordinance, especially for parking in the downtown area. And so what we're looking at is to amend Section 9.2 of the zoning ordinance, which is the use-specific standards, specifically the B4 residential development standards, to reduce the off-street parking requirement from 2 off-street parking stalls per residential unit to 1 off-street parking stall per residential unit. So we would need to change that in our table, and we would also need to change that in the table 10.10 minimum off-street parking standards in the B4 zoning district. So as a little bit of background, what's the purpose of this? Why are we coming with this proposed ordinance change? As you all know, we have to have a balance of the different uses in the downtown. We have customers using the downtown, we have residential uses in the downtown, we also have employees using the downtown parking spaces. So what is the right balance where we have adequate parking for customers to be able to get to the place that they're shopping, for residences to be able to get to where they're living, and for employees to park at wherever they're working? So we took a look at all of the downtown parking stalls and put together some numbers. And I'm just going to go over this real briefly. In the downtown, we have a total between private off-street parking stalls and publicly owned stalls that are open to the public at any time, and then we also have publicly owned lease stalls. So total for those off-street parking stalls downtown, we have 1,048 stalls. Now, if you add in on-street parking, which we're looking at from 4th North to 2nd South, Broadway to German, we have a total of 523 on-street parking spaces in that area. That brings us to a grand total of 1,571 parking stalls, again in that downtown area, 4th North, 2nd South, Broadway to German. So we took a look at the parking spaces. We also took a look at the different residential dwelling units in the downtown. So again, in that same area I just described, we actually have a total of 217 residential units in that small space, in that 6-block area. So there's quite a few residential units. That does include Broadway House and City Center apartments. We got these numbers from our fire chief, who does rental inspections in that area, and these are the numbers he came up with and shared with us. We also took a look at the different multifamily buildings that we have in the downtown. So we have City Center apartments. They have 29 2-bedroom units, 9 1-bedroom unit, and then 1 efficiency apartment. So they have a total of 39 residential units in that one building. And they have a total of 47 off-street parking stalls for that development. Broadway House has 40 units total, and they only have 18 off-street parking spaces for that development. Minnesota Valley Funeral Home has 6 units, and they share their parking for their people that have those residences with the funeral lot itself. Then we have Alchemy 101 LLC. that is kind of kitty corner from Anytime Fitness or the Baccarat down in that section. They have 7 2-bedroom apartments and a total of 8 off-street parking stalls to serve those residences. And then lastly, we have J&J Rentals, which is the old Herberger's building. They have 4 2-bedroom units and then also 4 1-bedroom units, so 8 residential units total, and they have no off-street parking on that site. They actually have to lease stalls from the city facing German Street to fulfill the needs of those residential units that they have in that building. Now, as you all know as well, there's 2 proposed residential, let's call them large residential developments that are being proposed in the downtown. One is the Market Plots Mall site. That developer is looking at anything from 60 to 90 residential units on that site. They have currently existing underneath the mall deck 137 parking stalls. And then we all know about George's Ballroom. They're looking at 21 one-bedroom units, 31 bedroom units with an office, 22 bedroom units, and then 14 two-bedroom units with an office. And they are proposing 116 stalls at their site. So a couple things. Number one, these larger developments, they almost always provide off-street parking of some sort for the residential units that they're proposing to develop. Where we run into more of a challenge is those 1s and 2s in the downtown area, and I'll use the Chamber of Commerce building for example. They have the opportunity to have about 3 apartments upstairs. Obviously, if you've been to that site, there's no place for off-street parking. That entire space is filled with building. So they'd have to find someplace else in the downtown to rent spaces, to lease spaces, or purchase spaces from another property owner. And currently, our ordinance would require them, if they have 3 new residential units going up, they'd be required to find 6 stalls. And what we're proposing is that seems to be a little bit high. A lot of the people that live in the downtown area, it's a single person or it's a couple that are driving 1 car, and to have that extra stall seems unnecessary. In addition to, we already have a large amount of off-street parking stalls available in the downtown for off-street parking at this time. So that's a summary of where this proposal came from and why we're looking at a zoning amendment. The Planning Commission last Thursday reviewed this proposal. They've found that this proposal or this request to change the ordinance met the findings of facts, and they unanimously recommended approval of this zoning amendment.
Madam, go ahead, Larry.
John, I got a question. So, like the J&J rental, they have 8 units. So did he have to lease 16 parking stalls or just 8 parking stalls?
He's supposed to lease 16. I think he leased 12.
Okay. That wasn't, I didn't think of that one at our zoning meeting last week. But one of the comments from our zoning, we tabled, this was a tie at the January meeting. And it was for discussion, and we asked for a little bit more information from staff. Staff came back with a ton more information for our zoning meeting for the month of February. And one of the examples was St. Peter. They put a new housing development in their downtown on their main roadway, and they went with 1 parking stall as per unit, if I'm stating correctly from John. And it's a mixed-use building with business on the main level and residential on the 2nd and 3rd floors. So, and they were stating a trend. They went out and asked Hutchinson, but Hutchinson was going to kind of look what we were going to be looking at amending, and then on that aspect. But we did get, some from Stillwater to Mankato to Fairmont, Faribault, other cities, the amount of housing, the units, and or how they're handling it by a conditional use permit, or if it's 1 stall or 2 stall per unit. And John stated at our last meeting when we 2 years ago when we adopted, that was overlooked because we went from 1.5 to 2, and it was just kind of bundled. Then after we already adopted everything, they knew that this had to come back, if I'm stating correctly.
That's absolutely correct.
So, and then one of our commissioners is on the Downtown Action Team, Bobby Fur, and she's been at our business, and that was discussed with them, and they all supported going to one also. And then the Chamber of Commerce group also supported it from the information that was shared to us. But, you know, I don't know the input of what Counselor Schultz or Warmka would think tonight, but, you know, there's a lot of information. But we did receive another letter. I'd like to know their comments, so I'm thinking out loud about just maybe we table this until we have a full quorum.
Yeah, I'm going to comment on Counselor Mack. I guess I'm okay with going ahead with the ordinance, but one condition that Mr. Nisley presents this whole thing again when the other two counselors are here, because that's when we'll act on it.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
So I do have a question. So it was previously at 2 or 1.5. It went up to 2, and now we're looking to take it down to 1. I will say that I did receive a letter from a constituent that hopes that we're considering things such as guest parking, you know, when you have apartments, service providers, you know, those kind of things, not to limit the ability to do that. And honestly, my concern is if we go down just to 1 per unit, it's going to create another parking problem, as there are, you know, you can't just broad brush this with the fact that, well, some of these only need 1. You know, I agree, okay, maybe if the chamber converts those to apartments and rent that out, should they have to have 6 units? No, probably not. Broadway House has 18 spaces, they have 40 units. You know, we all know that that's maybe some, you know, not everyone has a vehicle and that fits their needs, but why was 1.5 just not looked at as a standard at this point?
One of the things we have to consider too, you know, we do hear too that parking is a problem. But one thing we have to think about, is it a problem or is it a perceived problem?
Correct, I agree with that.
So when we took a look at all the available parking in the downtown, I mean, we have over 1,500 parking stalls within a 6-block area.
Right.
Which would mean that if Minnesota Street is the main downtown strip, that is 1,500 parking stalls within a block of Minnesota Street. So maximum, you're going to be blocking maybe 3-4 blocks to anywhere you're going to get. Now, I understand for some people that might be a problem. But at the same time, in other cities, we don't seem to have a problem walking 3 or 4 blocks to our destination. So it'd be a shift. It could potentially cause people to have to walk a little bit further. But it also could spur more residential development in the downtown.
All right, I agree with all those things. But, you know, was the 1.5, I don't know. I just feel like, you know, if we do want to get families and different things downtown, you're going to be talking about, you know, 2 cars. And I mean, is there a way to say that up to or so, you know, I don't know. You know, I am all for walkability. I'm all for, you know, encouraging people to be more active and walk, and to remove, you know, those barriers. But with, you know, where we're going, I mean, I don't know. I think I would like to have everybody here just to get some extra endpoint, because that is, I mean, just going from 2 to 1, that's a big change for some of our bigger unit folks. And I don't know. Robert, do you have any input on this or any comments from what you've seen from other places?
Thank you, Council President. This is certainly an issue that a lot of cities are considering. I don't know that I have anything beyond that I can say. I was in one council meeting where I think they completely eliminated their minimum parking requirements in their downtown district. It's certainly a policy question. That's why they pay you guys the big bucks.
One of the things that I, as the mayor, have heard when I was running for mayor and now in the year and a little bit that I've been in office is housing. And if we're looking at housing and it's a critical issue, as I'm hearing it, then I think this is part of that process of moving toward encouraging housing development and investment in our community. And from the research that staff has done, it seems to bear out the support of one stall as far as I'm concerned.
I'd like to add, I did ask John the question, you know, basically like Minnesota Street for the downtown units, if it's on Minnesota Street, maybe just look at just one residential unit, one parking stall per residential unit on Main Street, but if we have, say, a spur of new development on German Street, stay by the 1.5, but they kind of wanted to keep it all in the district, was the question. And then we were also provided, that, with trying to attract developers, I believe it was staff provided the information, that the developers, X amount of dollars, that they're trying to encourage and work with developers to develop the properties, and the dollar amount was quite drastically high that they shared with us to try to get those amount of stalls. But I think if we look at the numbers here yet too, if we got 60 to 90 units, we already have 137, so it's almost at about 1.5, and even the George's Ballroom is almost at 1.5 without doing anything. Another option we would have would be conditional use permit by the project, if we would want to go that route. That was presented to us also with what other cities have done. But, we didn't have any actual contractors or developers speak to us on these projects. But I think, staff's looking at it and trying to attract developers and loosening up our parking guidelines.
Again, I agree, and I'm not opposed to it. I just was wanting to make sure that, there are other alternatives considered. One of the things that I think we've done very well over the past couple of years is streamline the parking, so making the same amount of hours, in certain areas, because I know there was a lot of confusion with that. And so we are trying to get some clarity, on where people can park, but there's still a lot of confusion on, where can I park and where will I get a ticket and where won't, right, Dave?
Parking has always been an issue on downtown, right, David?
And so, again, I'm not opposed to it, but I would prefer if the other counselors were here as well to support.
Just a couple of other pieces of information. Number one, the 2 parking spaces per unit. Since that's been adopted, we have not applied that in the downtown area because we have had no requests.
Right, okay.
The second thing is that we have a couple of sources of information that kind of tell us what's taking place with parking in the downtown area. One is the lease stalls that the city has. Right now, we have 28 available. So to me, that's an indication that, there's not a tremendous amount of interest or, demand for parking in the downtown area. The second thing is that we have a parking enforcement officer. And that person is probably the most knowledgeable of the condition of parking in the downtown area. We periodically have conversations with them as to what's happening downtown with parking. And we did so before we presented this information. And we were advised that the parking system in the downtown area, that there aren't any problems at the present time.
Okay, thank you.
Again, my comment is, we can conduct the first hearing here because those 2 counselors will be available at the next meeting, and that's when we vote on it.
Yeah.
Get their input.
Then I would look for a motion.
Yeah, I'll motion to conduct the first consideration of ordinance number 2024, amending a portion of the sections 9.2 use-specific standards and 10.7 off-street parking requirements of Appendix A to the city code.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion does carry. Thank you, Mr. Nisley. Item number 3.2, preliminary plat of Oakwood UMC First Edition.
Madam President, members of the City Council, Dave Schnorber, Community Development Director. The Planning Commission considered this matter at their February 29th meeting, and they unanimously recommended approval with conditions. The applicant property owner is the Oakwood United Methodist Church. The current legal description of the property is the balance of Block 3, Schweppes Edition. The street address, there's actually 2 addresses for the property. One is 1630 Oakwood Avenue, and that is for the church. And then 1613 Betker Road, and that is for the parsonage. The property is generally located south of Betker Road, east of Hollywood Avenue, and north of Oakwood Avenue. The total platted area is 2.78 acres. Right now, it consists of one parcel of property. The plat would divide the property into 3 lots. The lot sizes are provided in the report. The parcel on which the church would be located is approximately 92,000 square feet. The lot on which the parsonage is located is approximately 15,600 square feet, and the undeveloped lot is 12,750. So all of those square footages meet the city's requirements for this particular zoning district. The distance from the church building to Lot 3 is 20.5 feet. The required setback is 20 feet, and that is why you have that angled lot line. The plat would allow the church to sell the parsonage and the undeveloped lot that is part of this. There are 4 conditions. One would be to pay the platting fee of $290. The second would be to pay the parkland dedication fee of $350 for the one undeveloped lot. The third would be to provide an electronic file of the plat in an AutoCAD 2016 or newer format. And the final item would be to provide a 5-foot utility easement on the rear property line of the proposed Lot 2 in order to provide utilities from the alley to the undeveloped lot. The utility easement would be on the north side of that rear property line. And that would conclude the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Schnobrick.
I've got nothing more to add from the zoning meeting, it's recommended to approve it. It's a pretty cut and dry, and staff did a great report with it. So I'm going to offer a motion to recommend approval of the preliminary plat at Oakwood UMC First Edition with conditions.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That motion does carry. Item number 3.3, a simple lot division for Lot 3, Block 1, City of New Ulm First Industrial Subdivision. Once again, Mr. Schnobrick.
Yes, the Planning Commission again considered this matter at their February 29th meeting. They unanimously recommended approval with conditions. The applicant is Taylor & Wald. The owner of the property is CMW Industrial Properties LLC. The current legal description of the property is Lot 3, Block 1, City of New Ulm First Industrial Subdivision. The street address of the property is 2130 North Broadway. The property is located east of North Broadway and south of 22nd North Street. The current site use, a majority of the Lot 3 is vacant, although a portion of the Spexus building is also located on Lot 3. The property will be divided into 2 pieces. Lot 3 has a width of 402.61 feet, a depth of 526.84 feet, and a total lot area of 4.87 acres. So we're dividing that parcel into 2 parcels. The north parcel would have a total area of 1.63 acres. The south parcel would have a total area of 3.24 acres. Both parcels would have frontage on North Broadway. There are 2 permanent utility easements that adjoin the front property line. One is for 5 feet and the second is for 25 feet. The easements would not be impacted by this lot division. The proposed legal descriptions would be as follows. Parcel A, and this would be the northern parcel, would read as follows. It would be the north 105 feet of the west 130 feet, and the north 250 feet of the east 396.84 feet of Lot 3, Block 1, City of New Ulm, First Industrial Subdivision, City of New Ulm, Brown County, Minnesota. The second parcel, Parcel B, would be Lot 3, Block 1, City of New Ulm, First Industrial Subdivision, City of New Ulm, Brown County, Minnesota, except the north 105 of the west 130 feet and the north 250 feet of the east 396.84 feet. I would note that those legal descriptions were reviewed with the Brown County Recorder, and they were found to be acceptable. The minimum lot area in the I-1 zoning district is 20,000 square feet, so the proposed simple lot division would comply with that requirement. The minimum lot width is 100 feet. It would also comply with that requirement. The staff has not been advised of any utility conflicts that would be caused by the proposed lot division. There are two conditions. The first is that the applicant will record the approving resolution with the Brown County Recorder's Office, and number two, the applicant will pay the application fee of $175. We also provided a note with regards to this request, and that is that depending upon how the property is developed, if there are structures involved, and we see the installation of sewer and water services to a structure, that there would be a payment required of $3,000 for water, $3,000 for sanitary sewer, and that's a fee that is found in our fee schedule. And then secondly, there's also a sanitary sewer fee of $1,400 that is charged for parcels within an area that is served by a lift station that we installed many years ago.
And the interested party was made aware of that.
They will be made aware of that.
They will be made, okay.
That will conclude the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Schnurberg.
Being that the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval, I'll offer the resolution approving the simple lot division of Lot 3, Block 1, City of New Ulm's First Industrial Subdivision.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Director Jorgensen, please call the roll.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Becker?
Yes, motion carries. Item number 4.1 under old business, a bid for the battery building replacement project. Mr. Wire, good evening.
Good evening, Madam President, Councilors. Ryan Wire, Park and Rec Department, Facilities Maintenance Supervisor. At a previous meeting, you guys had authorized us to go out for bids for the replacement battery storage building. So those bids were recorded, and you can see the 4 total bids in your packet. So we're before you today to ask for approval to enter contract and move forward with the project to the low bidder, K&S Carpentry of New Ulm, in the amount of $89,561.30. So the rest of the information's in your packet, the plan, the site plan, and everything else. So.
Madam President, I just want to make one comment. I had a nephew who's a contractor, did bid or gave an estimate on this. He's not the low bidder, so I feel comfortable voting for the low bid,
Okay,
K&S.
perfect. Thank you for disclosing that.
Explain why the 4th bid was so much more? I mean, it just
did
seems
notice
like
that
it's
too.
double. But I mean, 3 of
Yeah.
them seem very, very competitive.
Yes, great question. So the bottom 3 bids are all local contractors with local suppliers. As far as I know, they did disclose most of the trades and everything's kind of local. There was an outside contractor out of the cities. And because we had public bid information out there, they reached out, they got the packet, and they came. I think they're based out of Minneapolis. A bunch of their trades were coming out of the cities and stuff like that. So that's all I can allude to it.
Well, I appreciate that we have some local contractors,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, all the trades, all the materials will all be local contractors and stuff, which bodes well for us as well.
So, well, I'll offer a motion to authorize the bid for the battery building replacement project to K&S Carpentry of New Ulm in the amount of $89,561.30.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Item number 5.1 under new business is support for HF 3797, Highway 14 designation. Mr. Dalton.
Council President, Councilors, before you have a resolution to support House File 3797, which would designate a portion of U.S. Highway 14 from Nicollet to the easterly border of New Ulm as the Robert Boisman Memorial Highway. Representative Brand's office had contacted Lisa Pelzel to see if councilors, the mayor, staff would sign letters of support for this bill. And Councilor Schultz had emailed me and requested that to see if we could do a resolution as a city council in support of this, and that's what we're looking at here for support of the bill.
Madam President, I just want to make a public comment. I realize our past mayor, Bob Boisman, did a lot of work on this project, but I do want to publicly state that we had past mayors, I'm not going to bring the names up, who spent countless hours from Rochester to New Ulm. I mean, I'm not going to oppose it, but I just want to go on record. There were past mayors who also worked their tails off getting this to come through.
Thank you. I was also contacted and happy to support the endeavor. I think, yes, that it is a deserved recognition, and those are my comments. Mayor?
Well, I also want to go on public record of saying, first of all, support the resolution wholeheartedly, but don't want to forget that we did have mayors before this that worked diligently on the project when they were in office as well.
I would agree with everything that was just said.
Well, and I would agree that those of us who are still on that Highway 14 Partnership Committee and have been for some time, the work still is not clearly entirely done. And so, it definitely should be acknowledged that it is a group effort. But I, again, as the mayor said, wholeheartedly support this resolution.
So I'll offer the resolution in support of HF 3797, designating a portion of U.S. Highway 14 as Robert Boisman Memorial Highway.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Director Jorgensen, please call the roll.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
And President Becker?
Yes, motion carries. Item number 5.2, 2024 Board of Appeal and Equalization meeting.
I'll offer a motion to receive that the 2024 Board of Appeal and Equalization meeting has been scheduled for Monday, April 22nd, 2024 at 9 a.m. in the City Hall Council Chambers at 100 North Broadway, New Ulm, Minnesota.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion does carry. Item number 5.3, Fire Department donations.
I'll offer the resolution, waive the reading to accept the following donations. $50 donation from Keith and Stacy Stonick and Scott and Tina McCuden in memory of Dave Clancy, and a $50 donation from Barbara Leopold.
Second.
Thank you. We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Director Jorgensen, please call the roll.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
And President Becker?
Yes, that motion carries. Last item of business today under claims and estimates is 6.1, report of claims paid.
I'll offer a motion to accept the list of claims paid in the amount of $1,769,085.89.
Second.
Thank you. A motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion does carry. With no additional business, this meeting is adjourned.